Hi, all, and welcome to our third episode of Stories of a First Generation Latina Bolivian-American. I want to start by actually talking about these recordings. If you haven't noticed, if you've heard of the last two episodes or seen the last two episodes, they're pretty raw. I like to speak from the heart. I don't like to edit very much. I hope not to edit very much, just because I feel that this is kind of a conversation I'm having with you as if you were here present with me. So I felt like the need to kind of talk through that. And I also strongly believe that the representation of the Bolivian culture is very important to me because we are underrepresented. So you'll hear a lot of stories about my Bolivian experience, obviously, with the culture and the family and the traditions. But please, I'd love to hear you share your experiences. Maybe it's not in Latin American. Maybe you're first generation European American. Maybe you're first generation French American. Maybe you're first generation, in one of the Egyptian American. And all of this can in some way apply to you, but with your story, right? This third episode is about still identity. We talked about kind of identity crisis and clash between both cultures, right? The American culture for me and the Bolivian culture. This episode is also still about identity. That's such a strong topic for us because we are constantly trying to find our way through this world that is multidimensional in different facets of traditions, culture, societal guardrails, which I completely hate because I don't feel that they serve a good benefit or purpose to us. We are all very different, unique, period. No matter where we come from, how we came, what color we are, our background, we are all just very different. If you could just take just the nuclear family that you live in and apply let's say the siblings, each sibling is so incredibly different. They could all be very different also from the parent. And they're all very different in how the likes, the dislikes, even their experience, their purview, their experience is very different, even if they were raised in the same household. So imagine that and multiply that out. Expand your aperture out into the world. Everyone is just as special and different and unique in all great ways. On identity, as it relates to the first gen people, identity is so important to us, and I feel like, a different type of uniqueness because we're bringing so many different perspectives. There's so many studies that have been done on including diversity or having a diverse team in organizations make for the best formula because you're bringing all these different perspectives. I say the same for first gen. I mean, that is our biggest superpower as first generation Americans, fill in the blank, right? For me, Bolivian-American. It is so incredibly a superpower because we're bringing different worlds together. And then I also see it as a superpower for our motherland culture because we're also infusing the westernized approach, open-mindedness, the growth aspect, breaking through some of these traditions in a positive way to make a better impact and further your family's success, accomplishments, goals, dreams. We all dream of that American dream. This is where it can happen. And I strongly believe anybody can do it. Anybody can realize any type of dream that they're looking for. It's just a matter of planting seeds, putting action to plans, seeking the community for help and support, and grit, perseverance, and persistence. And obviously resilience too, because it takes a lot to even just migrate into a new world like this, right? That was someone's dream. It was someone from your family. It was their dream to come here and realize that. And it's almost like passing the torch, right? So we've got the torch now. to some extent. We've got the torch now. We move forward. And that's a superpower that we bring, because now we're bringing the best of both worlds. We're bringing the best of everything that has to do with your culture in the homeland and what you're learning in the American. You're taking the best parts of both worlds and creating this amazing world. And imagine now marrying or coming together in a community that's also just as diverse, rich. And what we can do together is, the sky, the universe is the limit. So our superpower is the diversity and perspective that we bring in very different scenarios at work, at home, in our community. Huge, impactful statement there, that is our superpower. Reflect on what superpowers you bring. Reflect on what you have brought already to your family. Reflect upon and celebrate those wonderful benefits that you were able to plant into your family from that American culture, or what you've watched your family evolve into in the American culture. What traditions that you bring to bear, where it's really created either a tighter family unit or it's fulfilled you. I want to take Thanksgiving as one of the traditions that we've adopted in our family. We do celebrate a day of thankfulness, and we take advantage of Thanksgiving to celebrate that for our family. Separate the actual definition with the story from the American culture. And my family, we've recreated our own story to fit our narrative and our experience, and thanking what the opportunity was given to us to be here in this country of opportunities, and taking advantage of those opportunities the best we can through action, through our experience, through putting ourselves in front lines sometimes of those experiences, and be the first ones to trailblaze through those paths. We take that moment, that day, to reflect and thank my parents and thank our family for staying united, for pushing through, for having that growth mindset together to achieve where we're at today, and be thankful for it. So the identity piece here is, again, taking those traditions and making them your own, building your own identity around those traditions and through experiences. A quick story about what shocked me in what is the Bolivian experience. When I was 11 to 12 years old, going into about the 7th grade, I'd finished 6th grade going into 7th, we had received our permanent residency. We had our green cards, I believe, in the 6th grade, and then in the 7th we planned a trip. Well, my grandmother was incredibly sick. We knew that her health was declining. She had a lot of emotional and physical trauma, as well as just ailments, body ailments that I'm sure contributed to it. We were given the opportunity to travel to Bolivia and live for a number of months, many months, in Bolivia, in Cochabamba specifically. I was terrified. I was excited as well, because we didn't grow up with extended family. We had an aunt here, a few cousins there. It was scattered throughout our childhood, as I mentioned, our first episode. I didn't grow up with a grandmother. I yearned for a grandmother. I'd be outside playing, looking at airplanes, saying, "Grandma, is that you coming to visit?" I mean, we were children. We had no idea what borders were about, right? The legalities behind, the country borders and visas. We had no clue as children. But we yearned to have our grandmother and have that experience, especially after children in our school who had no idea about, family separation and being in different country, experiencing something different apart from your family. They had no idea about what my family, my sisters, and I experienced not having that grandmother. And we would hear them, oh, we spent the summer at grandma and grandpa's. And I remember always just fantasizing how beautiful and wonderful that would be. And I yearned it. So when mom was like, we're going to go, and stay in Bolivia, we want you all to go to school. We want you to start learning Spanish at the level that you should be in as a middle schooler, and embrace your Bolivian roots and know where you come from. I thought it was a complete blessing. But we were terrified. So the plan was mom had our last sister at a much older age, and she was the baby. And so mom said this is a great opportunity as she was taking maternity leave to live in Bolivia, and dad was going to stay behind here in Northern Virginia and continue working and continue to provide financially for us. We arrived in Bolivia, met our extended family. It was beautiful. It was amazing to feel that connection, to actually feel like there was actually a hole in my heart that I did not know was there until I stepped foot into that country. I'm getting like really emotional. Because it was a missing piece of a puzzle in my heart, in my spirit. And the moment we landed and I smelled that beautiful Bolivian cochabamba smell, and I'm sure people are like, Monica, it doesn't smell too good. I loved it. To me, it was wow, this is my roots. I felt so connected to Mother Earth, to the energy around, to the people. To see my face in the majority of the people was beautiful. It was empowering. At that age of 12, incredibly impressionable young girl, I've never seen a native individual, and what we call las cholitas. I never saw them in my life, and when I saw them there, I was so touched. I was like, these are my native roots. This is my blood, has these native roots, and this is beautiful. This culture is beautiful in all shades of Bolivians, in all levels of society in Bolivia. I really appreciated it. It's something that I really needed in my life. So that experience was very beautiful. We ended up going to a private school, but it was a Castellano speaking school, which, by the way, I was corrected. We don't speak Spanish, we speak Castellano. And in Bolivia, and I kept telling people that. And so I don't speak Spanish. Honey, we don't speak Spanish here. We speak Castellano. I'm like, okay. So I didn't speak the language fluently. Went to school. I struggled tremendously in all subjects. I could not read fluently. I didn't understand. The text was too dense for me because my language skills, my vocabulary wasn't at par with someone of the 6th, 7th grade. So that experience there in school really shocked me because the format of the schooling was very different. We were in the morning, I believe 8 or 9 o'clock, and we were out by noon to the latest 1 o'clock where the buses dropped off the kids at home. And we had all of this afternoon time, which we don't have here in the U.S. So that was beautiful for us. We got to spend a lot of time with family. We got to spend a lot of time with just playing and being kids. It was a very beautiful number of months to have something very different from what we were used to here in the U.S. and Virginia. I think I appreciate much more just like spending time with people and community and family because I know that there's more than just that rat race that we live here in the U.S. where we're all running amok, chickens with our heads cut off. So that experience was very beautiful, very impressionable to me. I got to see firsthand poverty. Children, mothers, fathers, families, senior citizens, some living in the streets, children begging, that was, disabled individuals at the corners of churches begging. That was a shock to my system. That was a shock to my mind, and my reality shifted. It changed. Up until then, I did not realize how privileged I was. Almost like it felt like guilt that I lived this life in the US, in Virginia, where we are not exposed to those streets that I saw in the experience out in poverty areas. I mean, we were in the city, in Cochabamba, the city, and you saw so much poverty. And you saw so many beggars, especially children. It was just heartbreaking. My father was mainly raised in the streets of Cochabamba. And when I would see the boys, running around and trying to find a Bolivian or two just to say, hey, I'll take care of your car. Can you pay me a Bolivian? I'll take care of your car. Make sure no one touches it. And just trying to hustle, or selling candy, hustling. I envisioned my father in those children, and my heart broke in 1,000 pieces. My identity at that point was still in development, but I would say that today, that experience in Bolivia is a huge chunk of how I operate as a adult, as a human, as a mother, as a member in my community. It has changed me forever. You cannot unsee what you see in poverty and children and disabled and senior citizens. So that was beautiful as far as learning the Bolivian side and how just the world worked, a day in the life of a Cochabambina. That was beautiful. The dark side of it was with that, seeing the realities of a country that does not have the same opportunities as the US. Feeling that guilt and shame that I was giving those opportunities. Mind you, we lived incredibly humble lives in Arlington, Virginia. My sisters and I joke that we didn't own jeans, actual pants, like jeans. We did not own jeans until we went to Bolivia, until we were 12, 13 years old. We couldn't afford it. We wore those like leggings with like the little, rubber that goes under your arch of your foot. That's what we wore. And we wore hand-me-downs from garage sales and hand-me-downs from the children that my mother cleaned houses for. They donated clothes and stuff. We were not full of resources, and it wasn't abundant, the amount of materials and food that we had. Everything was very limited. I even remember having cereal one day. We never really had Lucky Charms in the house. We had a very, just cheap cereal, type cereal. Although Dad, he worked at a grocery store and he would bring, Lucky Charms was like a luxury. And he brought Lucky Charms. He brought one box, I remember. And I just couldn't believe how amazing this cereal was. It was so good. And I remember I ate a bowl and two. And there was only a little bit left for a third bowl. And I decided to eat it. I said, I'm going to eat it. I didn't share it with my older sister. And I got spanked for it. And she was crying. She was so upset. And just feeling that I couldn't, I couldn't miss the opportunity. It was very selfish of me. But I couldn't miss the opportunity of having that last bowl of Lucky Charms, because who knows when it's going to be the next time I'm going to see that box. So that just gives you a little perspective of, we are very limited in resources living in Northern Virginia. My parents were working their butt off. Dad had 2 jobs sometimes. Mom had multiple jobs sometimes, with cleaning homes, babysitting, and maybe doing some extra work here and there, just so that we can make ends meet and pay bills, and then save a little for eventually one day dreaming of of the American dream of owning property one day. So even with that limited resource, resources, I still felt guilty because that was much more than what these children on the streets of Bolivia had. It was much more than many families had, especially out in the farmlands and the natives that were coming into the city for work, and even those in the city that were professionals, right? Graduated, they had professions, they had master degrees. They couldn't get jobs. And so the opportunities were incredibly limited. And I did not understand that until I was surrounded by family members who would speak about it, until I actually saw it in the actual population and the people. I felt really guilty. Like, why me? Why do I have the opportunity to have this dream that my parents had of moving abroad into a first world country full of resources and opportunities? Why me? Why not them? So I battled with that. What stories do you reflect on where you had that battle and guilt feeling of having all these great opportunities extended to you and feeling like maybe others should have had that opportunity? I battle still with it today. It's true and it's real. And I think it's important to give back. I think it's important to reach your hand out to anyone and everyone to help them, whether it's in the US, whether it's outside, even if it's with advice, even if it's with just comfort of a call. We all need to do our part to give back because we've been given these opportunities. Whether we wanted it or not, we have these opportunities. Let's take advantage. Let's utilize and leverage our privilege for those that don't have the privilege. And let's help one another, because that's the way we're going to give back, and that's the way we're going to be able to work through that guilt. All right. It was good talking to you all. We'll talk next time. Thanks for sticking by. Have a good one. Bye-bye.